Coupled with withholding tax, there's also the question of tax morality, and increasingly we're starting to see consumers across the continent pushing corporates to pay what they perceive to be the right amount of tax.
It's very, very difficult, and I must say this, for governments when there's funds that are exported, eroded out of the base for legitimate reasons to manage this whole problem. In other words, I'm not talking about tax evasion, I'm talking about tax avoidance. And so that's when they start to grapple with this. How moral is it that these funds are exported?
On the question of morality, withholding taxes are becoming a key revenue generator for many African countries.
Withholding taxes is a critical factor in making a decision. Besides obviously the business decision that you need to make, but if you look at the taxes only, then withholding taxes is one of those critical factors. It's a high rate typically, it's easy for governments to levy on you, and it's difficult to get around it.
There are certain countries where withholding tax is significant on the African continent.
We need the right amount of taxes to be paid to sustain a growing demand of a lot of people who need to be sustained because, frankly, there's a mass of people who are not yet in the job market, and this is an infinite need of people and limited resources. And if taxes aren't collected, then there's a difficulty.
Politics and tax seem to go hand in hand. Where there's political certainty, the policy and tax regime is also quite certain.
South Africa is a nice example, is quite certain actually in terms of political stability. And also you see that on the budget day that we just had in South Africa, there was few changes, which is good actually for business, because then they at least know what they're facing at. I think Namibia is also a nice example. I think if you look at other countries, maybe Kenya and maybe Nigeria as well. Kenya is quite sophisticated in terms of tax revenue, in terms of transfer pricing. They're developing a lot, so you know what you're engaging with, and you also have some skilled people on the other side.
Investors don't really have a choice. If they're looking for resources, they have to come to the African continent, and the tax regimes and the policy regimes are important elements, but they're not the be-all and end-all. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in Johannesburg.